What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the F and Marks podcast. I am Jay. Brainless One is taking the week off, and he is going to rest up, and he is going to be back and better than ever next week. So we got a lot to get into. There are a lot of big things kind of brewing up to the top. We seemingly have CM Punk's imminent return to AEW, which is going to be happening allegedly in the next couple of months, and we are going to get into that a little bit more in depth. All right, so beyond that, we have Bill Goldberg talking about how he is going to do possibly a 4-city retirement world tour, and I guess we'll see what comes of that. I'll get more in depth shortly, but make sure you hit the subscribe button, you set up notifications so that when we go live every week that you will be notified that we are live. Make sure on the YouTube page you're hitting subscribe. Subscribe to us on all social media platforms, including Spotify, including Instagram, all that stuff, and you know, give us a follow and enjoy that stuff. I've been having a bit more fun with YouTube lately, so you're missing out if you have not subscribed just yet. So, yeah, gotta love that, Chris. MJF deleting a tweet about Goldberg. Gotta love it. One thing of note is SummerSlam tickets went on sale, and it says that there have already been 32,000 of these tickets distributed, and it's going to be at Ford Field up in Detroit. They had WrestleMania 23 there, and they had a record attendance of somewhere over 80,000 for that WrestleMania. That was the WrestleMania with the Battle of the Billionaires, hair versus hair, Vince McMahon versus Donald Trump. So clearly WWE would love to break that number from WrestleMania. I don't see it happening. And when they're talking about tickets being distributed versus tickets being sold, that's a couple different things. I mean, you could be giving away tickets to performers, you could be giving tickets away to TV stations, radio station, things like that. But even so, 32,000 is a significant number, and good on WWE for, you know, having no matches and 32,000 tickets are already out the door, so they're going to have at least a full-looking house, and that'll be good. So, you know, Mike Rainey, when it comes to Goldberg, you know, his matches since his return have been very hit and miss. Some I've enjoyed, some I haven't enjoyed so much. I mean, I thought the one that he had in Saudi Arabia against Lashley, I think was like his last pretty decent showing for himself. But a lot of his matches just are once they've figured out the Goldberg formula for what works, they just kind of stick to that, and they haven't deviated from it too much. I always come back to WrestleMania 33 because I loved that match with him and Brock Lesnar. That thing was outstanding. It was exactly what it needed to be, and they beat the holy hell out of each other. I absolutely loved that. But then you had that match with him and The Undertaker at Saudi Arabia, and that was absolutely terrible. And then you have the match he had with Dolph Ziggler at SummerSlam, which I loved. I loved the fact that it was like a squash match, and Dolph did one of the greatest sells of all time to the spear. I mean, it was great. What's going on, Jessica? So, yeah, I could see that, Mike Rainey. I mean, the match with Dolph was after the Undertaker thing, and that was them trying to rebuild at least some credibility with Goldberg. And I understand with that match against the Undertaker, it was like really hot out. They were sweating a lot. Goldberg had concussed himself before the match to just get hyped up for everything. And then he goes out there and he and the Undertaker like lay a stinker. It was supposed to be like a 20-minute match that ended up being like 5 minutes. And, Goldberg dropped Undertaker on his head. I mean, just so many things went wrong with that match. I'm glad nobody got super seriously hurt. Undertaker was, I mean, after he took that aborted jackhammer, I mean, that was just rough looking. So, I have not seen the story yet, Jessica, that you sent, but I don't think I did. I'll check it out though. So, yeah, with Goldberg, he had a handshake agreement with Vince that he would have a proper retirement match within WWE. Certainly feels that once Triple H took over, maybe that no longer is the case. But the thing is Vince is still in charge. And if he told Goldberg that, I think it'd be good of him to uphold that promise to somebody that they brought back. I mean, surely Bill Goldberg has been paid a ton of money, and we've talked about this topic before. WWE doesn't owe him anything monetarily, but if Vince McMahon gave him his word, I mean, and Vince has lied to a lot of people over the years, I like people to keep to their word. So if somebody told Goldberg, if Vince specifically told Goldberg, you will have a proper retirement match, I think it'd be nice if they actually adhered to something like that. And as far as the Goldberg possible world tour retirement thing, it feels like he's attempting to do what Flair did with his last match, but instead of having it in one place, he's trying to do it in 4 places. But, promoting your own show ain't no cakewalk. There's a lot that goes into things like this. And who is out there as an opponent for him that people would want to see? Who's a free agent who's out there that you're like going, I wouldn't mind seeing that. I mean, I don't think anybody's going to want to see him versus Ryback, right? Who would want that? So, anyway, I think in the end, we're going to see a retirement match for Goldberg. I think it's going to be at WrestleMania 40. And he'll realize all the logistics of trying to do a legit retirement tour, and it just won't jive. I think he'd prefer the idea of like going, let somebody else promote it and do all the legwork, and I'll go there and wrestle, because I mean it takes an awful lot of time for him to get into the shape he needs to for the in-ring stuff, and like, is he going to have time to go out there and do all the media for it? Is he going to have time to, hire everybody to be able to, let's say, rent the ring, put the ring together, make sure there's vendors, make sure people get paid? I mean, that is an awful lot of work, and I just don't know if he's up for the task. I mean, does he sit there and try to reach out to somebody like Conrad Thompson, who clearly helped his father-in-law, Ric Flair, with promoting that last match? Is there somebody out there like that? Clearly Conrad did that specifically because of Ric Flair and the fact that it was family. I don't know. If he wanted to do, let's say, a match in Israel as part of this, I think he could do something like that as a one-off in Israel, just to be in the homeland of his ancestors, and then do a WWE retirement match again at WrestleMania 40, have that be the last hurrah for him, and whoever that opponent happens to be. So, that's just me. So, yeah, Mike, I think one thing I have a great appreciation for with AEW and Tony Khan is they have used Sting extremely effectively. Sting has, not embarrassed himself in any of his matches, and has done his darndest to help put over new talent, to help put over Darby Allin, to help build for the future and make it, the wrestling landscape a better place. So I applaud Khan for that. I applaud Sting for, coming back to the ring after being away for a few years and retiring when he was inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame. So, but speaking of AEW, we have an awful lot to talk about with them. So, the rumored Saturday show is supposedly having its first night June 17th in Chicago. And the belief out there, and it's been reported, is that is where CM Punk is going to return. He's going to return on this new show, Collision. And allegedly, I don't know if CM Punk was the full linchpin for the deal happening for this third show, but Warner Brothers Discovery really wanted him there and was at least a big reason for this happening. And because of this, $52 million Warner Brothers Discovery is paying AEW for this show. That's quite a paycheck for this. And I understand from the business sense of things why Tony Khan wants to do this. But there are so many, for me, pitfalls and problems that this is going to, I think, lead to. I think most people are in agreement the first year and a half or so of AEW was good, fun, compelling television that was an alternative to WWE. The booking seemed to make sense, right? Since then, they added Rampage. They had AEW Dark, and there were some technical problems with the show where things ended up on the show that Tony Khan didn't want, and Tony had to end up, taking over for that. They add Rampage into the whole mix. Then he buys Ring of Honor. And now they're adding yet another show. So this dude just keeps on having to book show after show after show after show and has a whole bunch of talent. One good thing, I guess, that could come from Collision is maybe a guy like Miro, who's been sitting on the sidelines for about a year. Maybe this is where you put him, because they're talking about this third show possibly having almost like a hard or semi-hard brand split, where they're going to have some top-level talent on it. But you need to fill out the roster. You got guys like Brian Cage that just re-signed with the company, who hasn't been getting a ton of television time. Do you put a guy like him on that show, and hopefully, he ends up finding where his place is on the roster and becoming more than he currently is? That's a good thing that could happen. But Tony Khan trying to book, like 4 or 5 different shows, 2 different companies, it's too much for any one person. And I know that he has some people helping him out, but, he doesn't have as many super experienced folks that have booked on a high level for like a super long time for these shows. So it's all landing on him, and I think in part that's why the booking has gotten so bad with Dynamite, and again, it's like, I think it's nice that they allow the different performers to do their own thing, but there has to be at least some structure. I come back to the promo that was cut, I think it was like a month ago, with MJF and the other 3 pillars, Darby, Sammy Guevara, and Jungle Boy. And the characters were like all over the place, where it's like Sammy was trying to tell a face story and then like did a heel turn within 30 seconds. Yeah, Jungle Boy, who has been like a baby face almost the whole time, and he attacks MJF from behind and hits him with the microphone on the back of the head. Very heel move. And it's like nonsensical to me. That's just how I feel. So, yeah. So, so Mike Rainey saying Elite and apparently Jericho will be separate from Punk. Actually, Mike, the reports I've heard is Jericho is ready to do business even with CM Punk, and they're having a meeting, and allegedly the first feud coming back for CM Punk is going to be with Chris Jericho and or the Jericho Appreciation Society. And FTR may be involved with this. So we'll see where all this leads. Allegedly, they're going to highly promote Punk's return to AEW television. So this, I mean, clearly they're letting a lot of stuff leak out because they want people to know about this, but I think there's going to be some sort of big announcement at some point where they're going to promote Collision and the return of CM Punk, and I guess we'll see how all this plays out. But speaking of FTR, Dax Harwood, who has had a podcast, a wrestling podcast, and, you know, he's tried to use it as something to kind of explain the trials and tribulations of the road. He's tried to use it as a place to, you know, kind of make the wrestling industry, at least in his view, better. And you know, there were times where he talked about how he thought that people just needed to work their stuff out, and apparently he got in trouble for that. And, you know, it's a weird world when you've got somebody saying, hey, let's get together and work this out. And people who just say no, refuse it, and get mad at you for insisting or making the inclination of like, hey, let's work this out. Let's be adults here. Let's all have fun and let's make some money. Tony Khan's making money off the return of CM Punk. Again, it sounds like CM Punk returning was a big deal for this new Saturday show, which will net Tony Khan $52 million. So, but apparently the members of the Elite still don't really want to talk with him or deal with him. And, you know, my feelings on CM Punk are known. I don't appreciate somebody who kind of walks out on two companies. I mean, he walked out on AEW. He did. Doing what he did, he walked out on AEW. And, you know, they're bringing him back. Again, this feels like it's mostly about financial windfall. I hope if Punk returns that he's actually like a solid citizen and, you know, going to play ball with people and not erupt like that at the press conference. I hope Tony Khan says to him, that ever happens again, you are gone forever. And I don't think WWE's door is wide open for him. You know, CM Punk would end up, if he still wanted to wrestle, somewhere in, you know, New Japan, maybe. But they wouldn't deal with his bull crap either. And you got Impact Wrestling out there, or, hey, NWA. So I don't know. It feels like worse than a daytime soap opera. Quite honestly, I think it should be part of All Access, this whole thing. I think that would be more of, I think, a ratings boom than anything else. So, yeah, definitely, Mike. Some of my favorite matches in WWE were when Punk and Jericho went against each other. I remember years ago, I think it was on a Monday Night Raw, and they ended up having the audience vote who they wanted to see go. I think it was against Jericho, and WWE believed it was going to be one person, but the audience ended up voting for CM Punk. Him and Jericho had this match that might have been my favorite of all the matches the two of them ever had. I just remember that there were like these really interesting reversals that they did and interesting combinations of moves that you don't see often. And if they sat there and called that in the ring, that makes it like even better, takes it to, up like another few notches of just how incredible they are, the incredible chemistry they have. Because even if they don't like each other right now, they still have that chemistry in the ring. They know what the other one does. They know the strengths. They know the weaknesses. And they know how to work together. So yeah. So I think there are a lot of interesting things that could go on with AEW for this. I think Tony Khan's treading on some dangerous waters because, one, booking that many shows for one person is way too much. Two, you risk putting nitroglycerin in your damn locker room. With WWE, there were plenty of people out there that, had their own thing going on, didn't have to mess with Punk at all. Punk is a top guy and clearly is a draw for AEW, and that is why they're bringing him back. If he was just a problem child and didn't deliver what ratings or gate, they wouldn't even think about it. So, but I guess we'll see in the next few months. Similar to the Jeff Hardy stuff. As much as I don't agree with having Jeff Hardy back, I don't agree with bringing CM Punk back. If Tony Khan has made the decision to bring them back, I do wish them well, and I do hope that they actually have grown up a little bit and we get to see the best of them. I do. I hope we see the best of them. So. All right. So, speaking of AEW, one Hangman Page is currently in the process of negotiating a new contract with the company. I think that this is a slam dunk. It's going to get done. I think Hangman has been a solid performer for the company. I think he's well liked by a lot of people within the company. I think it's just a matter of time for this to happen. I mean, he's a former AEW champion, tag champion. Like I said, solid performer. I enjoy I enjoy what he does. He's not my favorite of the favorites, but I like what he does. So, good on him. So Tony Khan also did an interview, and they asked him specifically about Thunder Rosa and Dr. Britt Baker. And the way that Tony describes it is, no matter what they try to do, Baker and Thunder Rosa will just never get along. There's always going to be some sort of animosity. But when they're in the ring, I mean, they can create magic. They really can. And having that real-life animosity is clearly fed into their matches and made it feel more real. So, as much as you like to have harmony, sometimes that tension does create good stuff. Again, coming back to the Punk stuff, maybe that tension will create some good stuff. I hope it does. The tension with Baker and Rosa created a lot of good stuff, but lately it's been a lot of ugly stuff. And I hope that Rosa is, going to return in the not-so-distant future. And I hope her and Britt get into it in the ring, because it's going to feel real, it's going to be stiff, it's going to be something you'll want to see. So, Chris Brown, Matt Jackson, Nick Jackson have no decency in their bodies. Their egos are too massive for them to leave the past in the past. I have to agree with that. Punk has made at least some attempts to reach out, even if it's just social media, to say, hey, let's sit down, work this out, and let's do some business. If you're not able to at least, all right, you know what, he was an a-hole, don't like what he said, don't like what happened after All Out, but you could get into a room, and even if you don't want to wrestle with the person, you could at least make peace with somebody. I think it just kind of rots your soul if you let something like that fester. You let bitterness over somebody who made fun of you and slighted you, and let that be something so overwhelming to you that you just can't let it the hell go. So, Tim, look at you. Captain Douchebags on the Sasha Banks scale. Sasha Banks, a.k.a. Mercedes Moné, came out this week and said that she would like to be perceived on the same level, and she said similar things before, as like The Rock and John Cena and Hulk Hogan. When they think of wrestling, she wants them to think of her. I have zero problem with saying she is a talented in-ring performer. I have zero problem saying that, she's got charisma and has a interesting character, interesting look. I'm sorry. You're not going to reach the level of The Rock. I'm pretty sure you're not going to be Hulk Hogan. Pretty sure you're not going to be Stone Cold Steve Austin. Pretty sure you won't even be Roman Reigns level. Heck, you are not even on the same level as several of your female colleagues and counterparts. You're not on the same level as Charlotte. You're not on the same level as Trish Stratus. You're not on the same level as Mickie James. You're not even on the same level as Bianca Belair. Bianca Belair, who has had a shorter run than you have in your career, she is a bigger deal than you. I hope you check your ego at the door and let your actions speak for themselves, and hopefully the crowd attaches to you, and they have to some extent, but check the ego at the door. So, nice, Tim. Slightly more interesting than Lacey Evans level. Poor Lacey Evans. I thought they had something interesting with her before the Ric Flair storyline. They could have done something with that, and now they've changed her character like 20 times. Are they going to find something that sticks? Is she going to end up being like the Godfather who had like 20 characters before he landed on the Godfather and and became something more than just like Papa Shango, the Soul Taker? There were like 5 other things he did. Those are the ones that I remember off the top of my head, but yeah. So one former WWE employee, Charlie Caruso, the former Charlie Caruso, who had been at ESPN for the last few years, has quit ESPN and is now starting at a multimedia sports thing called Outkick. Caruso, after leaving ESPN, said more or less that she appreciated the fact with Outkick she would be able to share her opinion more often. Seems like she felt like she was a bit confined at ESPN. So, more power to her for It's like ESPN is a big deal, and I think for a lot of people would be a dream job. Being at WWE, traveling the world, big deal, and what have you. And it seems like, you know, this is what happens sometimes. People downsize because what's more important? A big paycheck and being famous, or being able to actually be your authentic self. So a lot of people clearly are choosing happiness over a big paycheck. And I have a lot of appreciation for that. So good on you, the former Charlie Caruso. You go and get it. But speaking of WWE and ESPN, they are allegedly in early stages of talks about doing some things together in the future. And I have zero, it clearly has something to do with the merger that they've got going on, where, UFC has their pay-per-views, and they have a deal with ESPN, clearly being attached to Endeavor. WWE getting stuff on ESPN would, certainly be a coup. I mean, they've worked together in the past, and clearly it looks like there's going to be a future thing between the two of them. Where it leads, we don't know. It's super early stages, but we shall see. Yeah. All right. Speaking of another former WWE talent, RVD posted pictures of himself on Twitter, and dude looks shredded. He's in his early 50s, and, it looks like he is ready to get back in the ring and kick some tail. He mentioned that he's not retired, and that of all the companies out there that currently, that are known, if he doesn't get, a place to work, somebody has, as he put it, splaining to do. So clearly somebody has talked with him at some point and said, hey, we'd like to have you back. RVD, though, did mention, he's like, yeah, I've kind of said some things that could ruffle some feathers out there, that people might not like to hear and might not want associated with their company, and that might be something that makes it harder for me to sign, which tells me that, WWE is not a landing place for him. I don't know. I mean, I certainly could see him as something for short-term AEW thing. If they want to bring him, whether it's Dynamite, Collision, if they want to bring him in as a special attraction when they do Double or Nothing or All Out or whatever it happens to be, I could see them doing that, but I don't think they would do anything super long-term with him. He's been pretty clear about he likes wrestling, but he doesn't have a great love for it at this point. It's business transaction for him. And that business transaction allows him to smoke more weed. And he said within this same interview that, if it's on a week when he's home, on average, he smokes about an ounce of weed on his own. And I've never been into that stuff, but gauging from responses I got from some people, it sounds like an ounce is an awful lot for a week. So, another former WWE talent, the former John Morrison, the former Johnny Nitro, the former Johnny Impact, what was his name when he was in Lucha Underground? Either way, John Morrison ended up having his first boxing match. And he ended up knocking out the dude he went against. It was, what the heck was the name of the event? It was called Creator Clash. So what they do is they take people who are social media creators, and they put them together and have them have boxing matches. And who the heck was the dude he went against? He went against the dude from Epic Meal Times, Harley Morenstein, and he knocked him out. So, John Morrison, good on you, dude. Knocking him out. Originally, I think the promoter was hoping that he would go against Matt Cardona, and he contacted Cardona and tried to encourage him to have a boxing match, and Cardona said no. Clearly, these dudes have been friends for a long time, since their WWE days. When Morrison left WWE in 2011, during the True Long Island story, Morrison used that as his way to write his self off, his character off WWE TV. He stepped into a car and had it blow up, similar to Vince McMahon's all those years ago in 2007. But the fact that he was part of that, and then all these years later, hey, they have this thing called Creator Clash, and they wanted to have the two of them duke it out in the ring. I think it's fun, but more or less Cardona was like, screw that, oh hell no, I ain't doing it. But after Morrison wins the match, they asked him who he'd like to call out for his next match, and he name dropped both the Pauls, Jake Paul and Logan Paul, and said, oh wait, you know what? KSI beat them, so I want to go against KSI next. And my question is, why wasn't it Bobby Fish? Bobby Fish has been boxing for like thousands of years at this point. He trained Joe Louis and did all sorts of stuff in the boxing ring before he finally had his first true professional boxing match last year, which he won. But I'd like to see Bobby Fish against John Morrison. What do you think? I'd definitely like to see that. I'd like to see some RVD in Riddle. I know that when they did some of I think it was Raw anniversary shows, they had Riddle and RVD interact, and it was a fun little thing. I wouldn't mind them having a short run of that, but I guess we'll see. With the fact that the WWE's in the middle of a merger, and there are talks by Nick Khan of aggressive cuts after the merger is done. He says at minimum he sees $50 million of cuts that the company is going to have to make. I'm sure a lot of it is going to be at the management level, but if I were one of the talent on the roster, I'd certainly have a little bit of concern. If you're one of the people that Triple H brought that Vince McMahon had cut originally, I'd have some concern. I think there are some folks that have done better than others. Like, I really enjoy what they're doing with Bronson Reed. I'm looking forward to seeing a match with him and Lashley. I want to see them beat the holy heck out of each other. There's something about Bronson Reed, the way he moves, and just his presence. And him against like a powerhouse like Lashley is just, it's just something that I want to see. And I think, this is one of the moves Triple H has made that I think has been successful. But there have certainly been some other re-signings that have not been as successful. Certainly with Karrion Kross, he's got the size, he's got a look, he's got unique features to him, but he just has not taken off. I think them bringing back Braun Strowman has been fine. I don't think Braun's lit the world on fire, but he he's also been a solid performer, and I think, you could see he and Ricochet as tag team champions in the future. So, and Tim, as far as Damage Control, they keep on having bits cut out of Monday Night Raw, which, just tells you the level of importance. Like, if it was something important, they wouldn't cut it. They had some stuff with Damage Control on Raw, but there was supposed to be more things behind the scenes, and it was taken off the show. You have, right after WrestleMania, they were supposed to have a bit on the show, and that got cut. So, yeah. Mike Rainey, you bring up a few names that, they certainly could be released. One name you have there, though, really put a smile on my face this week. They had some superstars talking about where they might go in the draft, and they're talking about Elias being last in the draft. And then you see Baron Corbin come in, and they talk about him not getting drafted, and Tozawa just looks him in the eye and says, "You suck!" It put a big smile on my face. It was great. It was almost as good as when Seth Rollins said to Corbin after he had taken over as GM of Monday Night Raw, and he said, "Because of you, Monday Night Raw has sucked." For a long time, that was a soundbite I used on this podcast anytime there was something that just pissed me off. But, yeah, there are certain people on the lower end of the card that you could see dropping off over time, over the years, and what have you. But, yeah. All right, Chris Brown saying he's read that Pretty Deadly and Dragunov might be getting called up in the draft. I think Braun Breaker could be another person that could get called up during the draft. The draft is going to be happening on, I think it's starting next Friday, if I'm not mistaken, on SmackDown, and will end on Monday at Raw. So we're going to get a lot of switching around of talent. With Roman, because he's the, undisputed WWE Universal Champion, he could go to whatever show he wants. Does that mean that he could take the bloodline with him, even though, the Usos are no longer the undisputed tag team champions? I don't know. And with the brand split they currently have, clearly, they have exceptions for it. You don't have anybody and everybody showing up on both shows. You have a select few that you feel are big-time performers that shouldn't have a brand. But I'm wondering, who do you think could use a refreshing and use a switch of brand to get, new people to go against? I think it might not be the worst idea. I think draft Charlotte over to Monday Night Raw and get a Bianca versus Charlotte match at some point. Charlotte's taking some time off right now, but in the future I would not mind seeing that match. As much as I hate saying this, having a match like that, let's say at SummerSlam, maybe the Money in the Bank in Wembley Stadium, where you have the Raw Women's title on the line, and honestly, I think you would have to put the title on Charlotte for that. Not that I want to see her continually win titles and what have you, but Bianca's had the title for a really long time, and if you want somebody who you feel like is a credible threat to her to beat her, I think Charlotte would be the way. I think Charlotte going to Raw, I think would be a good idea. So, did you see the body language with Paul when he was doing his promo with KO and Sammy on SmackDown? I did not get a chance to watch that, so. All right, you got Tim out there saying he believes that the bloodline is going to get split up. I think that could be an interesting little piece of that story. You know, you keep Solo with Roman and you put the Usos on the other show. Roman could go to whatever show. Solo could show up with Roman, you know, to be as heavy at whatever show. But have that be a thing. Why not? You know, Chris Brown with Bobby Roode. Bobby Roode's been out with an injury. And I think he still has quite a bit of time before he's healed. I think he had a neck fusion, I think like 3 or 4 months ago. So he has at least, you know, another 4 to 8 months before he'll be ready to go again. But, you know, clearly with somebody like Nakamura just coming back after having kind of a hiatus from television, not having McAfee on SmackDown to help kind of be his hype man, you know, I think that's something that'll hurt him a little bit, you know, where, you know, I guess that's one thing I really appreciated about McAfee. You know, it's WWE, World Wrestling Entertainment, and of all the commentators that they've had over, you know, the past decade, the man who puts the most E in WWE as a commentator was Pat McAfee. You know, Michael Cole talked about McAfee revitalizing, you know, his love for wrestling, his love for commentary, and just there was something special about the camaraderie and the chemistry between the two of them. And the fact that he would go up and dance on the table and do something that you normally didn't see a commentator do. Specifically for a guy like Nakamura. And, you know, Nakamura has had himself a solid run in the company. I don't think it's been everything that a lot of the internet wrestling community was hoping for and thinking for Nakamura, but I mean, there's not a lot you can complain about. He, you know, went against AJ Styles at WrestleMania. We got that match at WrestleMania. The match wasn't quite all we were hoping it would be. You know, Nakamura was NXT champion. He Intercontinental champion, tag champion. I mean, he's had just about everything except for the heavyweight title. He's been in heavyweight title matches. He's had a solid run. Not main event run, a solid run. You know, you can't complain too much about it. And I know Nakamura, when he re-signed with WWE, his hope was to finally get to that final notch on the ladder. Or final, you know, step up. And it hasn't happened yet, but I guess we'll see where that story goes. I don't get the feeling that Nakamura is going to be World Heavyweight Champion at some point, and it is what it is. So, yeah, you know, Chris Brown with Lacey Evans, she really appears to have just about everything that you would really want in a women's performer. You know, she's got a look, she's got a physique, she's got a backstory. And when you can't make that work, you know, I realize there's an awful lot out there that goes into timing and just being able to really get the audience to buy into you. But you know, she's like a legit badass who has dealt with a lot of things in life, and for whatever reason, the audience just has not quite gotten into her. I thought the sassy Southern Belle was a great character, and, you know, sometimes injuries happen, sometimes things happen as you're starting to get that momentum, and then the momentum stops, and you just can't carry it. So we have officially announced for WrestleMania Backlash, we will have Cody Rhodes against Brock Lesnar for the main event. WrestleMania Backlash has already sold out. This is one of the things that Nick Khan has been an extremely positive influence in World Wrestling Entertainment. Getting them to expand their horizons, to go back to places either they haven't been in a while or to places they've never been. Encouraging them to do more spectacles, to have stadium shows, whether it was the shows that they did in Australia a few years back, clearly convincing them to do a premium live event in England, and having now another premium live event in England, and just expanding the footprint. It's like a lot of these places have seen World Wrestling Entertainment, but they have never experienced it as a live thing, a live entity. And Nick Khan is like, let us use the fact that they are starved for the thing that we do. Let's go to those places. Not all the time. Let's go to them enough where we expand our fan base and you get a very large, raucous crowd which just electrifies the fans at home and the performers in the ring, and you get to see something next level. So good on Nick Khan for this. The fact that they've gone to Puerto Rico and bringing in Bad Bunny, who clearly is a huge fan of professional wrestling. He doesn't need to do this. He is one of the most well-known and most listened to performers. Like every year in the last 5 years, it's basically been between he and The Weeknd over and over and over and over and over again. So kudos to them for being able to get a dude who clearly has been a lifelong fan to buy in and continue to help support and promote this product. So we have a sellout already, and there's only 2 matches announced. We got the Brock Lesnar and Cody match, and we got the Bloodline going against Sami Zayn, Kevin Owens, and the original bro, Matt Riddle. Matt Riddle, who ended up getting squashed by Solo last week. But, I mean, this match makes complete sense. I dig it. And again, the brand and what have you sold out that show in Puerto Rico. The brand and what they're doing for SummerSlam sold or have helped distribute 32,000 tickets for Ford Field. They haven't even announced a damn match. So there are a lot of good things going on with the WWE brand, and on not just a U.S. level, we're talking international level. And again, good on Nick Khan for seeing a deficiency in the WWE model and saying, we need to go to these people. They are thirsty for our product. Let's do this. So the Cavender twins, who are of fame because they were on the University of Miami basketball team. They had signed NIL deals and are interested in coming to WWE. They have actually shown up at the Performance Center and have done some training. Does this mean they're signing? They certainly have a lot of buzz around them right now. If I were them, I would strike while the iron is hot. They have the personality. They certainly have athletic ability. Can that translate into a professional wrestling ring? You know, we have some cases where it does, and sometimes it doesn't. You know, Gable Steveson, the gold medal winner from the Olympics 3 years ago, you know, he signed with WWE. He was drafted, I think it was the last draft actually, to Raw. And we still haven't seen him actually have a wrestling match. And we've only scarcely seen him actually show up on WWE. And Steveson says he is in the midst of training to be in the Olympics next year. And maybe after that we'll finally see him try the pro wrestling thing again. But, so the Cavender twins, I think we are going to see them in the ring. I think they are going to sign with the company, and let's see what happens. I think it's good to sign people who have true athletic ability. I think you could teach them in-ring psychology. I think you could teach them all the movesets. If somebody has it, you can't take it away. So, another big announcement for WWE this week was that talent is now once again allowed on Twitch. And WWE has made what will be a mutually beneficial for all three parties, the performer, Twitch, and the company, will all make money off this. WWE will make the least amount of money from this deal. And, you know, the talent will be able to do their thing. Zelina Vega, who was a big proponent of this, and in part was why she got released a couple years back. Another big part was she expressed the idea of unionization for performers, but she was a big advocate for Twitch and was upset that she was told she had to shut it down. So, but through this deal, everybody's going to get paid. So, as much as many of the on-screen performers, you know, have an extra shine on them because they're on national TV every week. Yeah, WWE deserves, I guess, a bit of credit for that. But not allowing that performer who is a independent contractor to work with outside stuff, I mean, to me seems jacked up. So I'm glad that this deal was made. It allows the performer to really get into the things that they like to do. They get paid, and the company at least takes a bit of a percentage. So they get some money into the company, and everybody, I think, is satisfied. So we'll take that. All right, so we have Money in the Bank coming up in a couple of months. Going to be, again, in England, and Sam Roberts came out and made a bold statement. He says he wants to see Logan Paul win Money in the Bank. What are your thoughts on that? You know, Paul has really performed at a high level, better than some of the performers who have been with the company for years. Would you be interested in seeing him with the Money in the Bank briefcase? My personal opinion, I don't love the idea. And the reason why I don't love the idea is if you put the briefcase on him, I'm pretty sure he would try to cash in on Roman or whoever happened to be the WWE Universal Champion. And I don't think he would win if it were Roman. And that would mean, you know, you'd have several years of Money in the Bank winners not winning. The freaking joke that they made out of Money in the Bank last year with Austin Theory doing about the dumbest thing you could possibly do with that briefcase still boggles my mind. But I don't like the idea of Money in the Bank winners losing a whole bunch. Because a lot of times they win the Money in the Bank briefcase and then they go on a losing streak. But then you go from losing streak to losing the match when you're clearly trying to take advantage of somebody who shouldn't be able to beat you. In the case of Austin Theory, not so much. He answered an open challenge with the briefcase, and it wasn't even for the big title. How dumb can you be? But I do like the idea of a guy like LA Knight winning the briefcase. I do like the idea of maybe, hey, LA Knight is the dude who figured out a way to take the title off Roman. You know, when they do Night of Champions in Saudi Arabia in about a month and a half, that will actually be Roman's 1,000th day as WWE Universal Champion. I would say any day from that one forward, you could possibly see the title get taken off him. I think there are some performers from the past that the company would prefer to see him beat to showcase his greatness, his longevity, and how he's just a different level performer. But I would say after he reaches 1,000 days, I think anybody could possibly take it off him. So, yeah, Tim, Logan Paul, the fact that he really didn't do anything with wrestling up until a little over a year ago, and the fact that he has just caught on, you know, with what to do in the ring. There are still some things he could work on character-wise. I mean, he certainly works better as a heel than a face, and him being an arrogant douchebag, it seems like it's 100% him and part of him, and works really well in the professional wrestling sphere. So, if Gunther is the one that beats Roman, I ain't going to be upset about that either. Gunther has worked to get himself in the best shape of his life, and he continues to deliver on the biggest stages with the best matches. Whether it was when he was in NXT Europe, when he was in NXT, and even now on the main roster. The dude just knows what he's doing in the ring. It's a bit of a throwback style, and I enjoy the heck out of it. I think even people who are fans of like the more modern style have a great appreciation for what they see him do. They have a great appreciation for guys of similar ilk like Sheamus and Drew McIntyre. And having a guy like Gunther take the title off him, I mean, there aren't too many people at this moment that feel like they are built enough to feel like a legit threat against Roman. Gunther is going to feel like that when it happens. So. But speaking of Drew McIntyre, McIntyre is still dealing with an injury. The injury was something that was even a prelude to WrestleMania. He decided, like, you know what, I'm going to tough it through. I'll be able to work Mania, but I'm going to need some time off. And apparently he's still several weeks away. But he did do an interesting thing on Twitter where he blacked out his Twitter account, removed all references to WWE. Like we mentioned last week on the podcast, I think he and WWE are going to work something out before the end of his contract. There are still varying reports of when his contract ends. The ones I tend to believe say that his contract ends at the end of the year. There are other ones that say that it ends during the summer. But I guess we'll find out in a short time. Also, along with McIntyre, Becky Lynch blacked out her Twitter account. I think that had more to do with what happened with Trish turning on her and beating the holy hell out of her. I like Trish's promo on Monday Night Raw, where she was explaining her actions. You know, it's been quite a while since we've seen heel Trish. And when Trish is explaining about her legacy and how she is the greatest women's wrestler of all time, this isn't a nostalgia moment or a nostalgia tour for her. She felt Becky Lynch nipping at her heels as far as being, you know, a great woman performer, a great women's champion, and doesn't want anybody to have any stake at the claim outside of her as being the greatest women's performer of all time. So that's why she decided to take out Becky, and that's why we will eventually get this match, whether it ends up happening in England at Money in the Bank or if it ends up happening at SummerSlam. We have, you know, a couple of months before these things happen. But I appreciate the Trish heel turn, and let's go. Let's do this. I'm looking forward to the match. For the folks out there, what do you think about the Trish heel turn, the Trish explanation of what was going on? So just put that in the comments. So, so another injury note, something interesting. Will Ospreay has been battling a shoulder problem. He says his range of motion is back, but he doesn't feel the strength in his shoulder is there and what it should be. But because he's been cleared to return in the ring, he will, you know, keep doing his thing. But in the I think it was a tweet he put out, he talked about the wear and tear on his body, the style that he does has been difficult. And he says the things he used to do, he can't do anymore. And at this point, he is doing things as best he can with how his body feels. He says he can't do the shooting star press safely anymore. And he still loves performing. He still loves doing it for the fans, in front of the fans, and he's going to do it as long as he can. But he's like, I think it's going to end sooner rather than later, because clearly, like, if a wrestler who is kind of conditioned to be able to kind of just deal with it, go out there and do their thing, is talking about the punishment his body's taken, clearly he's in rough shape. So, on a completely unrelated note, one, Ted DiBiase Jr. has been brought up on several counts for fraud and all, getting funds he allegedly shouldn't have. He and a company or what have you that he has. If convicted on all accounts, and if he gets the maximum sentence for each count, he could be going away for decades. If I'm reading the article that was written correctly, it looks like he could reach a maximum of 85 years behind bars. His brother Brett already made a plea deal to kind of minimize time in prison and fines he was going to have to pay. My guess is DiBiase Jr. is probably going to do the same thing. Similar allegations have been made against their father, the $1 Million Man, WWE Hall of Famer, Ted DiBiase. Will we see the $1 Million Man going to prison too? It certainly feels like it's going in that direction where, if I'm remembering right, I don't think Brett got out of going to prison. But instead of going for a really long time, he's going for a less long time. And I'm going to guess we're going to see the same thing with DiBiase Jr., and I think the same thing will go with DiBiase Sr. So, you know what, Tim? I think it'd be a credit for all of them, and Brett Favre to be the cellmate, because Brett Favre, it sounds like he's done something very similar. And with Brett Favre, it's like, dude, you already got a ton of money from your football career and from all your endorsements. Why do you need to steal money, allegedly, from Mississippi? Why? So, the thing with specifically DiBiase Sr., he allegedly, had, a conversion after he left wrestling and, became a Christian. And I'm a Christian, and the thing that bothers me about this is, as Christians, we all hope to live a life close to what Christ lived. But when you have somebody prominent like this, who is pretty well known as a Christian, who allegedly has done stuff to violate a trust, it then looks bad on all of us. I mean, I sit there and I hope and I pray that, he didn't do these things, but it feels like he did. feels like he did something that were cheating people, stealing from people. And that's not the Christian way to do things. I mean, the Christian thing to do is to forgive the guy if he asks for forgiveness. And actually, it even says, even if they don't ask for forgiveness, you're supposed to give it to them. But, I mean, he's really just putting a smear on the title of Christian. And again, the idea of being a Christian is to live a life like Christ. This shouldn't belittle or besmirch the person who was Jesus Christ. It should just be a black mark on Ted DiBiase Sr. But unfortunately, I think it's going to end up, oh, see, that's what Christians do. They're just as bad, blah, 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 blah. You know, and it just sucks. You know, it's like I certainly try to live my life as I need to be the kind person I need to be the graceful person I need to be the merciful person I need to, and to love people how, you know, Christ loves us. And I hope all the DiBiase family has a legit come to Jesus moment again. I hope that this was a stumble from Ted DiBiase Sr., Jr., and Brett. I hope it was a stumble and that they realized that they really messed up and they violated a trust, and money ain't everything. There's something for your principles. There's something for what you stand up for, what you represent. And yeah. So I will leave it at that. Anyway. So a couple of things on the wrestling programs this week that I did enjoy a bit of. We had Chad Gable and Maxine Dupree having a shush/shh off. It was really stupid, but really in my wheelhouse of things that entertained me. It reminded me of Dr. Evil when he told Scott, I have a whole bag of shh here with your name on it. I liked it. I'll take it. I already talked about Bronson Reed and Bobby Lashley. I'm looking forward to that happening. Bronson Reed ended up interfering when Lashley was taking on Austin Theory for the U.S. Championship. So I enjoyed the end of Monday Night Raw where we ended up having Bloodline. We had the Spooky Pals. The LWO, Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn, and Matt Riddle brawl. Fun little bit going off the air. I don't think it would be the worst idea of when they do WrestleMania Backlash to perhaps have it be, you know, a bigger match, maybe even a four-way match. It certainly seems that they are teasing towards that, even though the current match that's been put on the card is Bloodline versus Zayn, Owens, and Riddle. But they could, in the next few weeks, add this as another match, other performers to the match. So, on AEW Dynamite, they have actually set up a little thing to figure out who will go against MJF at Double or Nothing. I really like MJF. really good performer, really good talker, but they seem to like to do this gauntlet thing where you have to go through a whole bunch of people before you finally get to him. They've done it a lot, and they're kind of sort of doing it again, where they were taking the other three pillars of the future, Sammy Guevara, Darby Allin, and Jungle Boy, and they said, okay, well, they flipped a coin and gave a bye, and I think it was Darby Allin who got the bye, and we got Jungle Boy going against Sammy Guevara in a match on Dynamite. You have Guevara going over. So now we're going to get Sammy Guevara versus Darby Allin. Winner of that will go against MJF at Double or Nothing. Clearly, it looks like Darby Allin is going to get this match. You know, I don't think they'd want to do heel versus heel here. So Darby is going to face MJF. I don't think they're going to pull the trigger with Darby winning the title. MJF, I think, is doing pretty well with it. You know, he had that epic, classic Iron Man match with Danielson. And every time he's actually been in the ring, you know, since he came back from his hissy fit, he's been really good. He's been great on the mic as usual. He does things that nobody else does. And I don't see them taking the title off MJF, but, you know, give Darby a shot, see if the crowd really takes to him. They do like him. Clearly they love him when they're in Washington, but yeah. All right, Chris Brown saying, oh, and Jay, as of this morning, WWE released the entrance theme of Uncle Howdy on Spotify, Apple Music, and other platforms. What do you think we can take this as a sign of, if anything? If they weren't planning on doing anything with Uncle Howdy and or Bray Wyatt, this would not happen. I remember years ago, Eric Bischoff mentioned something about how after WWE released him, that his book was still selling on their website and he was making money off of it. And they decided, if I'm remembering right, his book was selling for, I don't know, I'm just throwing dollar amount out there, maybe $10 a pop. When he mentioned that, they then ended up putting it on the website, and it was like 50 cents a copy after that. So that, or it might have even been a penny. So that way, like, oh yeah, we're selling a bunch of copies, but you're going to get like less than a penny for everything we sell. But for this specific thing, most things in WWE happen for a reason. So hopefully we'll get the reemergence of Bray and or Uncle Howdy, and hopefully they have a damn direction for him this time. It seemed like the first few months they had kind of planned out, and then after that, it just went to shit. I like seeing somebody like Bray just because he's different, but, like, you can't have one match. You have to show up and have at least a few matches. Do something more than just spout gibberish for 3 months. So I think this means we're going to see Bray relatively soon. I'm going to say that we're going to see Bray reappear during one of the draft nights, whether it's on SmackDown or Raw. We're going to see him reappear then, and maybe we get to see him have a match, whether it's in Saudi Arabia, or maybe we get to see him at Backlash. I'm going to guess Saudi Arabia or after. Just my honest opinion. So. And the least surprising thing that happened this week in professional wrestling is the TNT title changed hands again. Wardlow has now had the TNT title, 3 times in the last, about 30 to 45 days? Tony Khan, stop. If you're going to do this to this title, just retire it. You're making it mean less than nothing at this point. It's a prop, and it's a fucking joke. Let somebody hold it for a little while. Wardlow felt like he was gaining some momentum. You took the title off him. You put it on Samoa Joe, and you had a great moniker with Samoa Joe for being the king of TV. And you took the title off him immediately. He won it back. And then he lost it again. Is there any title in the world less relevant than the TNT title? And I'm including the WWE Women's Tag Team Championships in this. Any title less relevant? No doubt, Tim, 24/7 title does have more prestige right now than the TNT Championship. Anyway, I think that's about all I got for my notes for this week. So, if you've enjoyed what you've seen, make sure you like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, subscribe to us on YouTube, and follow us on all social media platforms at the FN Marks. That's the letter T, the letter H, the letter E, FNMARKS. On Facebook, make sure you set up notifications so that when we go live, you will be notified that we go live. That's always been our thing, and it will be keep on being our thing. So that is it for the show. We got some good, bad, and brainless. Since I don't have the brainless one to join me this week, I'll be doing it solo, but I would love, I know Chris Brown said he had some fun and unique good, bad, and brainless for this week, so definitely put it in the chat, but I am going to share mine for this week. All right, so my good for this week, I absolutely loved Tozawa when he told Baron Corbin, "You suck." I laughed. I laughed a good belly laugh at that. It was beautiful. It was perfect. Baron Corbin needs to go back to looking like an Olive Garden waiter with a stain on his shirt, and he needs to bring me some more damn breadsticks. All right. So Tim is going with the shush off. You know, if they let them have more time, I don't know if it could be as good as or as iconic as the woo off, but the shush off was an awful lot of fun. It was very entertaining. So good. All right. For my bad for this week, I think it really sucks that a guy like Dax Harwood, who clearly loves the sport of professional wrestling, who really wants to see the expansion of it and really wants it to grow and wants it to be a healthy community. He does a podcast where he's trying to give things from his perspective about trials he goes through, the things he has to deal with, everything that happens in the wrestling industry. He's tried to bridge divides between different people. And because he's done that, he's gotten himself into trouble. And you can understand why he said, "Why am I going to keep doing this? It seems like it's just making things worse." It sucks that we live in a world where you're trying to bridge a divide and be something positive, and people get angry about it. They don't want to see people shine. They don't want to see the positive stuff. And the fact that he decided to stop his podcast because of that bullcrap, it's just sad. A sad state of our world. Sad state of the AEW locker room. And just in general, the wrestling industry. I like a lot of things about the wrestling industry, but the fact that somebody who was trying to make a positive difference like that, it feels like it was just shot down and just a waste. It's just absolute garbage. All right, so Tim has Brock Lesnar not explaining his actions on Raw as his bad. That's a good one, Tim. When you have somebody who turns heel or does something, you would like to actually hear why the hell they did it. You had Trish Stratus this week do a really good job of explaining her actions, why she ended up taking out Lita and taking out Becky Lynch. I'm the greatest of all time. I want to make sure nobody even sniffs close. I don't want there to be any question who the greatest of all time is. It's me. You didn't get that from Brock this week. They already did sell out all the tickets at WrestleMania Backlash. People want to see the show. I want to see Cody versus Brock. I want to see what they do. Brock has taken a lot of losses to a lot of people in the last couple of years. He won at WrestleMania. But, is this part of the building block for Cody? Or are they going to send Cody, further down the card in the coming months and have him, hey, I've been absolutely destroyed now because I lost my match at WrestleMania, my chance to finish my story, and the chance to help build kind of the redemption storyline of not being able to finish the story, but then he loses again. I could see them doing that. I could also see them having him win. Do you have Cody at SummerSlam take the title off Roman? But if you do that, you have to start that rebuild now. If you plan on waiting longer than SummerSlam, you have some time, so you could have Brock go over in this match. But it would be good to know why Brock did what he did. I know he's Brock Lesnar and he could do whatever the hell he wants, but yeah, I get what you're saying there. So, all right, Chris Brown saying his good this week was seeing Rhea turn Owens inside out on Raw. His bad? The Dynamite main event where Adam Cole's cuffs came off and lied on the ring while he was reaching for Britt. Chris Brown's brainless MJF's Instagram post where he made references to Goldberg's religious beliefs. Very, very interesting. All right, and my brainless for this week is going to Ted DiBiase Jr. I know when these allegations came out, at this point I think it was over a year ago, I'm pretty sure he, his brother, and his father got my brainless then. And at this point, I know that things really haven't changed much, but, we now have charges against him. He's facing an awful lot of jail time. The fact that, he left the wrestling industry where he was getting paid pretty decently and he wanted to go home and be a father to his family and, not miss things with his kids like, I'm sure happened with his dad. That is an honorable reason to go home. But when you have that honorable reason to go home and you do dishonorable things, allegedly. I mean, you'd be better off being a professional wrestler right now. You know, at least if you're a professional wrestler, you could have, like, well, I'm missing some things with my kids. Now you're going to go away for a long time, possibly. And it's a choice you made. Oh, I'm going to go home and be with my kids, but because money was a bigger deal to you than your integrity, you might not get to see your kids grow up. What's worse? So Ted DiBiase Jr., you get my brain list this week. All right, and Tim is going his brain list with Sasha Banks and her arrogance. She borrowed that from Rick the Model Martel. He used to have the little spray can of arrogance. And, Sasha thinking that she is going to be the biggest thing the wrestling world has ever seen. Again, talented performer. She's a star. She ain't that level. I don't think she will ever be close to that level. It's fine for you to have confidence in yourself, but when you talk that, it feels like you're reaching. Not that you believe it, so. All right, Tim's saying nobody sells in wrestling anymore or works from underneath. I feel like Rey Mysterio is the only one who does. To an extent, Cody's been doing that. He spoke of when he was going against Roman, he didn't know whether or not he could beat Roman, but he thinks he could. And I know Zayn was kind of talking about he thinks he could. But Cody was kind of sort of working underneath, and he's clearly working underneath with Brock right now. But yeah, and that, specifically for the not selling thing, that was part of my problem with the main event for night one of WrestleMania, is you had these moments where Sammy was selling like crazy, where he had like the drunk legs and couldn't stand, and then next thing you know, he's running in a full sprint with full energy. Stuff like that just kind of takes me out of matches. Overall, that match was really good and really solid, but stuff like that just ruins it for me. And another guy that does similar things is Malachi Black. I don't like when he takes like a knee to the face and then like runs after the person and as if nothing happened. So, anyway. But anyway, I think that is it for this week and for episode 309 of the podcast. So, thank you for tuning in, and Wait. There's one thing left. Did you know that today, April 21st of 2023, at an astonishing 3,008 days, F and Mark's Hall of Famer Curtis Axel is still alive in the 2015 Royal Rumble. All right. So for episode of F and Mark's podcast number 309, I am Jay. Hope you enjoyed the show. We will see you next week. Enjoy SmackDown. Enjoy Dynamite. And we will talk to you then. Have a good one.